Ahoy there, Lorcana fans. Welcome back to another episode of Local Lore, a podcast for Lorcana players who believe the best games happen in their own backyard. I am, of course, joined by my lovely girlfriend, Lindsay.
Hi, friends.
We have some really cool segments here today. Hope you enjoy it. We, of course, as always, have our lore drop where we fill you in on our experiences playing in our local area.
Yeah. It's an exciting one this week because our league switched up.
It did. We've got new, big changes that we're still sort of learning from and processing as we try to lead our local stores Lorcana League. We're also doing our review of the Palace Heist. Sorry about the delay on that, but we did get to play it, and we have so many thoughts. It was a really fun experience. Can't wait to dive into that. And then we will end the episode looking at some rotation-proof, ultra-budget deck lists. The idea here is creating something that you can hand to a brand new player or someone you're hoping to get into the game that doesn't cost much to put together, but that is going to survive rotation. All of the cards are going to still be usable in September when all of the old sets rotate out. Yeah. So, can't wait to get into that. But to start off, we usually do an icebreaker.
Yes, for sure.
So, Lindsay, our icebreaker today, what alternate format do you wish Ravensburger would officially support for Lorcana?
Yeah, because we've gone rogue in our local league, and we've had a few fun makeshift formats that we've done. I know that they announced for Worlds that there's going to be a couple of different formats, so I'm sure we'll get to see more of those in regular competitive play. I think the one I'd be the most interested is because there's so many cards out now, and there's so many cards that just don't get play.
Right.
And also there's so many cards that are, one might say, overpowered.
Yeah, true.
I think it'd be really cool to see a type of Commander format. Like, to be very clear, I'm not a Magic player. I have literally played Commander once, but I've seen it, the Star Wars Unlimited has a Twin Sun format, which is kind of a Commander multiplayer format, and I just think that sometimes that can be an easy entry-level way for people to get into the game if they don't have cards, because it's just buying one of each card. Yeah. So they can kind of scale and go from there. So I just think it would be really cool. And, we've all thought through, like, what would you do? Do you have one card that's a commander? Do you have a card in a song that's your commander?
Right.
Like, different things. It would just be a really interesting format. So.
Yeah, and I think it would help. We've played a little bit of, like, the officially multiplayer rules, which are very, very, very basic from when the game launched, and it just doesn't quite hit the right note. The games are often really one-sided. They end too fast.
Everybody just teams up on Ian.
Right. Well, that happens too. Discard is extremely broken. So I think having some sort of extra rule set that's like having a character you can bring in, like your commander, or maybe a song or something like that, just so that you always have something to do on your turns. Like, I just think there should be some official thought put into it, because those types of formats are amazing ways to get people into the game, and gives you great ways to play the game if you have a low turnout at League one night, or if people are just hanging around after, or like waiting for a set champs to finish.
The awkward moment between set champs and like before a new league starts too. There's like sometimes there's a week or two of League that's like in limbo. Yeah,
you're like waiting for the new set.
Exactly. So.
Yeah. I think for me, I would love to see some official, not just like rules, but an official, maybe like some fun price support stuff for any of these things, but especially a franchise theme. We're at the point now, 8 sets in. Yeah. Like, you really can build some solid franchise decks, and I think I think you can do it with just 2 colors. I think tricolor is perfect.
That's fun. Especially, it's fascinating now with the dual ink cards too, because I think the dual ink has leaned hard into the franchise lines. I was like, my Ruby Steel deck is probably 80% Mulan franchise.
Yeah.
So I think that there's definitely, I think that you've got a Blurple Frozen deck list easily, so, but I think another color to kind of help support.
Or smaller deck sizes, 40-card decks or something like that, but just some thought into the rule set. But then I also think that the cool thing with the franchise is it really speaks to the theme of Disney.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really cool to see that, like, with, I don't know, if they sent a special promo card set and, encouraged local leagues to run one of these events, and everybody that plays gets a cool promo, but only if they play this type of format. I just think that would encourage sort of the creativity at the local level that I like to see, even if it's not the primary way to play. So I think that'd be really cool. Let us know in the comments if you have ideas for what alternate formats you would want them to support. I know in our area, a lot of people love Lorcana.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's a great one.
Commons and uncommons. That's a cool way to play. There's
a couple of stores here that do like regular Lorcana nights, which I think is kind of cool. So yeah.
Well, let's jump into the lore drop. So, League this week was different.
It was.
Lindsay, do you want to run us through?
Sure.
Everything changed.
Everything changed. For the better, for the worse. Like, I don't know. Like, it's up in the air right now. Yeah. It was we had a great turnout at League. So to catch you up, our League before was on Sundays, kind of in the middle of the day, and it was set up to be really open play. So most of the leagues in our local area are kind of more constructed play, almost like done in a like low key tournament style. So through Melee, there's match pairings, like different things like that. Ours was way more open and way more flexible. So it was all about asking people to play. It was great. I think it worked out really well. There was like low stress, but we've kind of had ebbs and flows in attendance. And so we had some regulars that were here pretty consistently, and then they kind of dipped out. Then we had some new people join. We, in our local area, we probably facilitate we probably get the most new players and casual players that are kind of like not the new, we're getting new to TCG players, like lots of youth players in our area. I think because of Sunday, it's it's not staying up late on a school night kind of deal.
Families.
So and it worked really well for a while, but there's just been but Sundays can be tough for our schedule. Ian was running our local league, and so we had to take a step back. It's really hard during set champ season, when you have the competitive players not showing up. So we have kind of gone back and forth. But our new league is now shifted to a new day of the week, which is Thursday nights. So it is going to be a structured tournament style. So there it is set up on Melee. There is 3 rounds. You get a pack per win. You also get a participation trophy pack if you lose all of your matches.
That's true.
So you don't go home empty-handed, and then obviously there's prize support with promos and pins being given out each week. So we saw several more of the competitive players in the area show up to our league. Is it because it's new and they're trying to support the new night? Is it maybe that night works better for them? We are in Richmond, Virginia, so we have a lot of stores. So we do, our community is pretty well integrated. And so try not to have, there's not too many you could go to a league almost every night of the week, except for Tuesdays. Actually, I think I lied. I think there's a new store that does have kind of a more casual league on Tuesdays. But anyway, all that to be said, we're not stepping on anyone's toes. I think there's maybe one other local league that's kind of on the other side of the river, which is 30 minutes across town. So anyway, I liked the change. Obviously, I've been trying to grow as a competitive player. And I think the structure just really helps me get kind of into more of a tournament space, tournament headspace, playing against, people who are a little bit more competitive. I love teaching new people. I love playing against kids. But when it does come down to like the time I need to get reps in, it can be a little bit tough if my only day to play cards during the week is I'm spoiled because I have Ian at home, but still. So I'm curious how other people structure their leagues. It'd be interesting to hear what your scene is like. Obviously I keep saying it, but we're spoiled in Richmond. We have lots of stores. We have a very healthy local Lorcana league scene. So there's kind of it's a choose your own adventure. If one doesn't work for you, you can get to go to another. So I'm just curious kind of what other people's experiences are like.
It's an interesting thing, right? So, I mean, obviously the main reason it had to move was because just a lot of the regulars, ourselves included, were having a hard time supporting Sunday afternoons. And it's a shame, right? That and this is a word that goes out to other league leaders, store owners, and stuff. Like, you're never going to find a time that appeases everyone, and you're never going to find a format that appeases everyone. But one thing that I noticed, and that I think I've learned not just from Lorcana, but also from being a participant in other games and going to leagues for things like Pokemon, is that the most important thing is having a consistent figurehead, to be honest, a point person. Yeah. Right? And if the league is always bouncing around by whoever's there, kind of wings it that day, it gets really hard to get people to stay. But the more important thing, it's really hard to onboard new players. And now, obviously, an open play setup like we previously had is the perfect environment for new players, kids, and stuff like that. But it didn't really incentivize the more competitive-minded players to stick around. We'd even have situations where people would learn the game at our store and then eventually stop coming once they got a little more serious, which is a disappointing thing to see. Yeah. I think the key, and this is just my current take, right, is if you've got somebody that's the designated, in this case it's me, but the designated like league leader, then you can have these more competitive formats, but that person needs to be available to help new players learn if they come in and check out the league, and can be there to answer questions and whatnot. And I think that there's a tough thing with that. Like, I personally would love to be playing rounds every single week, and instead, what happened this week was I wasn't pairing. I just would play people who finished their matches quickly, and I would just get games in with the folks that, their best of 3 match ended pretty quick. And so I would, try to get games. And I still got a good amount of games in. It was still very fun. But I'm imagining, like, what happens when, a dad and their 2 kids come in and want to learn. I think that's a struggle that I've seen other leagues, even in our area, have, which is like, there's no one there to work with them. There's no one there to get them hooked on the game. And like with many things, first impressions really go a long way. So I think that's how I'm thinking about it now. Again, we'd love to hear other people's thoughts, and if they have ideas for how to make that nice blend between a competitive league, but also a friendly and accessible league that new players can get into. Yeah. I'm all ears. Right, all
I know. Ears, I'd love to know. Because, like, I think back on our league, and, like, as a new player, our league, we're at Unplugged Games Cafe, and we're also kind of in a unique spot, because the store that we play at is not your traditional, like, card store. It is a restaurant. It's a board game cafe restaurant that also hosts, and they host multiple TCGs. So it's not like that part's not weird. But it is kind of like there isn't always a point. There's not a store point person. Like their job is keeping kind of the restaurant going. They employ the sweet volunteers that are willing to run league. But like I think back when I started, if I had gone to a league that was like really serious, I think it might have intimidated me away because I was just looking to play casually. And so our league was the perfect fit, obviously. And I remember because early on there was a league that was really close to my house. And so there was a night that I think I could go that you couldn't go. And so, but like the first time I tried to go, they were like, oh, I thought it was like ours. It was casual, come in, I could show up an hour late and catch a couple of matches, and theirs was paired. And so they were like, well, you've already missed like 2 rounds, so like it's not worth it. And I was like, luckily I got brave and I went back. And it really wasn't as big of a deal as I thought. But at the time, I didn't know.
Right, and imagine if you didn't have that, frankly, that backing of someone to play with at home. Right, you might have showed up and not knowing how it works, and there's no one there to play with you. Like
no one to explain what's going on. It can be intimidating.
Right.
So
it's important, at least in our experience, because we want to be ambassadors of the game. We want the game to grow and live for a long time. It's important to be thinking about those sorts of things, I think.
I agree.
Well, hey, let's move on. We're gonna talk about the Palace Heist.
Yeah.
We got it right here.
We did it.
We were unfortunately not able to do this last week like we said we were going to do, so we're doing it now.
Life happens.
So I guess, what was it, 2-3 nights ago, we got to sit down and play, and we played a lot.
We had a stormy, rainy, thundery afternoon. So we played, we went into it like, we'll play a couple of games, we'll see. And we played for a while.
We did.
So we started... Well, let's backtrack. Let's talk through what's in the box, because this is a lot different.
It's true.
Than Ursula's Return. Like, Ursula's Return just kind of came in a box, and it was like, here's some cards.
Well, and it wasn't even a box.
It wasn't.
That's the crazy thing.
Like,
it was like a...
This at least came with its own box.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it was just a cardboard sleeve that held all the components. Yeah. And I mean, props to Ravensburger
for sure
for upgrading, because that was the big gripe that I think was universal, and they acknowledged it. And look at this. I mean, you have a nice traditional board game box that you can store everything in.
With its own deck box. So, like, it comes with deck boxes, which do fit a sleeved deck, by the way. We did test that, because I was like, ooh, that's a small little deck box, but it fits a sleeved deck. And because the first thing we did was sleeve up our cards. And, like, we were talking about this, like, this is a board game. I mean, you could effectively take this... we're big fans of heading out to a brewery or a lunch spot and hanging out at a picnic and playing a game. Like, you could play this.
Oh, totally.
Having, obviously we know the game of Lorcana, but it could effectively just be a board game. You could teach somebody.
Well, and one thing we're thinking of doing is taking apart the pre-builts that they give you and building themed decks that are, like, once rotation happens, we're going to have all these cards that we won't be able to use and constructed. Yeah. Build some themed decks and just store it with the box. So it's a great way to intro someone into the mechanics as well.
Right, it's a great way to teach somebody Lorcana. Totally. Who's like, it's much easier to teach Lorcana when you're like, here is a board game setup, you're trying to achieve a goal, rather than like,
fighting against someone.
What's the point?
Yeah.
What do you mean? How do you win? So I thought that was really cool. So we played with...
Well, and if I may, one more thing. The difference between having a literal board with beautiful sort of artwork and a paper, fold-out mat, night and day. We'll give a grade out of 10 at the end here, but, like, I can tell you I'm a sucker for nice collateral pieces. Yeah. And I felt like, I mean, it went from real bad to pretty darn good from a year difference. So yeah.
No, I agree. I'm right there with you.
I'm just geeking out about it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I really think that they hit 10 out of 10 on as far as like packaging and branding and like the cohesion. I really think that they nailed it there.
I agree. Yeah.
But let's talk about actual gameplay.
Yes.
So our first was funny. We were like, do we start on easy mode? We started with normal.
Right. There's 4 difficulties.
Yeah, there's 4 difficulties. So there's, I don't remember them all.
Easy, normal, I think hard and extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I made Ian read the rules as per usual. But it's very similar to Ursula's Return. So you're going against Jafar here. So we played. Do we want to talk about how it's played, or do we want to talk about how we played?
Yeah, well, so I think just as a basic overview, the concept is that you're playing Lorcana. At the end of the day, you're playing Lorcana, but so you're trying to get to 20, but there's some extra ways that you have to win against Jafar, who's also playing Lorcana and has to quest all the way up to 40 instead of...
He's got some different rules.
He does, if you've played any other like cooperative games where there's a randomized enemy, and I've played a lot of them, right? So think, Sentinels of the Multiverse, the Lord of the Rings card game, a cooperative card game. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking. There's several more. I know that there's a official Marvel one. There's lots of styles of this. These raid decks, so to speak, right? And so what's cool is that you choose a difficulty you want to play at, and it modifies what Jafar does. And so obviously we played on normal to start, which gives you some special abilities that you as the Illumineers can use. And as it gets harder and harder, you get fewer and fewer abilities that you can use to help you against Jafar. And Jafar's these difficulty cards will enhance Jafar's stuff and make them more and more challenging to overcome. And so, basically, but then from then on, Jafar's deck will put characters out that are going to quest or challenge. They'll put action cards that damage your stuff or force you to discard cards and just things to mess up your plan while you're trying to get to 20 before Jafar can get to 40. And it's really, really an intriguing build. But yeah, Lindsay, run through like our experience. And we played on 3 different difficulties and we did lose once.
We did lose once.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first game we played normal mode with the pre-constructed decks that went with it. I obviously played Blurple, and Ian played... Also, this is your spoiler warning, so if you don't want to be spoiled on any cards that are in the game, like, I'm not gonna intentionally spoil anything.
Well, we're not gonna spoil the mystery card.
All right, we won't spoil the mystery card.
The prize card.
Yes, the prize that you get. We won't spoil that, but we might talk about cards that are in the Palace Heist that are in Jafar's deck. So if you don't want any of those spoilers, that's your official warning. I don't know what we'll talk about because this isn't scripted.
Right.
So. But I'll say it right now. So we played twice. We started with normal mode on... Ian played the Amber Steel deck. I played the Blurple deck. I think it was pretty simple. It took a second. It was kind of fun to play cards that I've wanted to play, but I've never really played in Blurple or like some of the newer stuff.
Yeah.
We were pretty successful. It is kind of a daunting game at first because he's questing to 40, but he quests real fast. There's some big bodies that quest hard. And the
longer the game goes on, as you're getting more lore, he's getting more lore and as you're getting more ink, he's getting more ink and is drawing more cards per turn. And instead of drawing cards into a hand, he will draw them and then play all the cards he drew that turn at the end of each turn. And so, as obviously as the game goes on, he's flipping more cards, you're having to deal with more, but you're better equipped to deal with it.
Right. Well, and I think the biggest thing is there's not a lot, obviously trading and challenging into one another is a big piece of Lorcana. That's not happening as much because the Jafar cards, and the rules say that there are cards with Reckless. We didn't run into any,
literally
so I don't
4
know.
playthroughs and no Reckless characters flipped
there
for
was
us.
no challenging back from the Raider deck kind of thing. Obviously, you're losing characters in challenges, but we kind of just played around that. And so, you then don't really have to worry as much about damage sitting on characters, and I feel like you're a lot more, and we'll get into this later, but I played a deck. We ended up, so we played with the decks, and then we also had a chance to play with some of our decks.
Yeah, because we played the pre-builts on normal. We won pretty handily. Then we played the pre-builts on hard, and we narrowly lost.
Yes, it's true.
So then there
was a really poorly timed card that came from the Jafar deck that almost wiped. There was some damage. There are ways to clear characters. There was one that dealt 1 damage, one that dealt 2 to all the characters, or wiped all exerted characters or something. So there are ways that it does interact with your board, but for the most part,
it's not challenging.
Yeah.
They're using AoE effects for the most part, and I know that supposedly there are some Reckless cards in there, or cards that are, maybe it's just that you can give Reckless to things. That might be because there's a lot of green cards in the game that do that. But anyhow, we did lose, and then we said, well, let's grab some of our fun decks that are constructed decks, core constructed decks, and try it on hard and then on extreme. Hard, we blew it out of the water with our constructed decks.
We had our, maybe we really lucked out. We had a pretty strong combo of decks. So Ian played his Alice deck, which is Sapphire and Amber, which is a lot about support, giving characters support, obviously, so Alice Growing Girl can quest for high numbers, or you can using the queen.
Buff up things.
Buff things up,
debuff the opponent.
Yeah. So anyway, and
I'll just step in here and say I'll put that deck list in the description along with other deck lists. It's a less than $50 deck, and it's insanely fun. And it is so fun. It is like a fringe C tier competitive deck. Like, it actually can win. It's my pet deck, and I've been playing it since set 2.
There is a universe that you show up to a set champs, and you just hit the right matchups, and you just take home a champion match.
It is.
But it is. It's a fun
Everyone sleeps on it. It's the best way to play Amber Sapphire by a wide margin. And it's also super fun. Yeah. So anyways, check that out. And then you played Ruby Steel.
My Ruby Steel Challenger heavy deck.
The one we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it became this really great way for Ian's characters, because with Alice down, all of his characters give support, plus the Queen gives support. Yep. You're giving double support with the Queen. And you've got Mulan challenging for 12.
Well, and
there was some crazy turn that I was like,
and Calhouns were getting buffed up to crazy numbers, clearing locations, clearing big characters.
So we wiped the board on hard mode, so we decided to turn it up, and we played the Extreme, which I don't think we ever played Extreme on Ursula, but I had heard that there was no way to beat it. So we played it a couple times on lower modes, but I think it was challenging. It wasn't easy, but it was fun.
It was challenging, but I definitely think we still had our pre-built decks were more than enough to handle it. It is a little bit more of the, if you really want to beat, and I won't spoil it completely, but if you really want to beat the Extreme mode, you can kind of build your deck to beat it.
Yeah,
we did not do that. We just picked up 2 decks we liked. And even though the Extreme mode had a component that was challenging for us to deal with, we ended up able to overcome that and win on our first try playing the Extreme mode with with our decks that were core constructed decks.
Yeah.
Now, I think from a game experience perspective, right? What I kind of want to do pros and cons here. Overall, pros, I think obviously, for me, I found it to be a relaxing and enjoyable experience that sort of, in my opinion, it allowed you to play Lorcana and use the same cards, but in a different headspace. Yeah. And I really liked that.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't know that I have a lot of cons because I really did enjoy playing it and we'll definitely play it again. I agree with you that it was kind of a chill way to play Lorcana. Yeah. And I'm already excited at the idea of teaching using this as a gateway into Lorcana.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think my biggest cons are there's probably a steep learning curve if you don't play Lorcana.
Yeah, if you were gonna bring this out, if you were gonna buy this from a Walmart and you've never played Lorcana before, you're not only learning how Jafar's deck works, you're learning how the basic rules of Lorcana work.
Yeah.
And that might be a little challenging because I will say that the rule book was not super detailed on, it did tell you how, Illumineer's turns worked, which is the rules of Lorcana. But unlike the Lorcana rulebook, which is very detailed,
it's pretty sparse. You know when they make the movie for the people who read the book?
Right.
It was that. Yeah. This game was made for people who are familiar with Lorcana in at least this is definitely not the first time. It was written in a way that it's probably not their first time if they're
buying this.
Yeah.
I think if I may, one of the cons that I have, I wish there was even more scenarios. The little difficulty levels. I would have liked to see a whole. They gave 2 cards that were double-sided. I would love to see 2 more cards. Yeah. Because it felt like there were so many ways to slightly tweak or modify or make certain components. One of them made locations really hard to deal with. Well, I would have loved to see one that made the characters hard to deal with, or that made the lore go faster, or did something more interesting with the HalfCon. Basically, my only con is I want more. And then also different types of difficulty because there's different types of challenge.
Correct. Yeah, I do think, and Yeah, it's what you said.
Right.
Like, it wasn't just like easy, normal, like hard. It was kind of like, it just sort of changed. Like each one sort of restructured the game in a little bit more complicated way. And I feel like they really could turn it up and go
even harder.
With it. Yeah.
I think that this could have been.
You just get really creative with it.
Yeah, and you can, and I think again, like it's one of those things where it's like it's a good thing, and I want more of a good thing. Mm-hmm. So it's like hard to label that as a con, but I do think like a little bit more challenge is the only thing this is missing. Mm-hmm. Is a way to make it even harder.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that's not really fair to judge the game itself on, but is important to judge the overall product and its value is the cards you get out of it, because you do get 2, pre-constructed decks, and they do have a few
some great cards in them.
Decent cards, yeah.
Also, the artwork is beautiful. So there's a unique style foiling on. You get a legendary with each deck.
Mm-hmm. And a super rare.
Was it a legendary?
Yep.
Yeah. So a legendary and a super rare, and both are shiny.
Yeah, yes. Both of them have this special foiling with like sand sort of drifting across the card.
I mean, it's whoever's. It looks like the enchanting for the. It looks like the foil for the enchanted cards. So like, it's a really elevated foiling.
It's not like a full art.
Yeah. It's not like a full art.
It is.
But it is a foil in the same style as like, the enchanteds have like waves and stuff in the foiling rather than just a flat foil.
Yes. Yep.
And I really think it just makes you they feel very luxurious. They're very pretty.
They do.
Then they picked pretty cards to do it on. So, and like the steel deck has 2 docks in it, I
was gonna say dock, in my opinion, and I would expect there to be some video content on the channel soon. Talk about this, but I think my number one recommendation for budget players going into rotation has shifted away from recommending amethyst as a base and is now recommending steel as a base, because docks are, they're like $5 a piece, but they're so darn versatile. You can play them in aggro decks with pretty much any other color. Yep. You can play them even in some mid-range decks, because your hand can get low, and they're just really efficient. They synergize a lot of things. There's also the new Shift Rhino, which is an amber steel sort of dueling card that's seeing a ton of play at the high level competitive scene, and is just really a pretty dominant card. There's one of the Lilos, the zombie Lilo, as the community likes to call it. That's always a great card, and it seems like I think that's just a really good core card to include. But from the purple deck, the Elsa Fifth Spirit, again, a staple, hardcore staple purple card, and Into the Unknown is another sort of slightly pricier super rare for just the blurple color combination. So we
only pulled 1, so now we have an extra.
you get some really good stuff in there. Not everything is great. There's some commons and uncommons that you're kind of like, I probably will never use these in standard constructed. But overall, considering you're getting a really fun product that's an enjoyable way to play, a different way to play, especially if you're playing with friends or family members that are interested, but they're not like hardcore competitive people, maybe setting them down in front of a cooperative experience is a little bit better way to play. And then considering you get several, pretty solid cards, I would say like overall, the docks are about $5 a piece. The Rhinos, I think $3 or $4, maybe more. Like Elsa's, I think $7, $8. Like you're really like, in terms of pure value for the cards, if you're a newer player and you don't have those cards yet, man, it's really it's really convenient to be able to pick them all up in one box that you can also then use in other ways. Yeah. So overall, out of 10, what would you give this product as a whole?
I mean, I'm pretty positive, but I had a great experience playing, and I think I definitely will want to play it again. So give it a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
Always room for improvement.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I think for me, I'm about an 8 out of 10, which is pretty darn good. I think for a Lorcana product. So. Well, maybe I'm a hater. I think for a Lorcana product, it's one of the best piece of collateral they've done yet. Again, I would love to see sort of the board game aspect played up a little bit more. For sure. But overall, very, very happy, and can't wait for. Man, I'm like, I guess I gotta wait another year to find another villain raid deck to come out, but I can't wait for it. I'm actually excited about that. So, yeah.
All right. Well, we could talk about this all day.
We could.
I think we should move on to a new section called Deck Check. Ian has put together a couple of rotation-proof, ultra-budget theme decks to build for friends and new players. So if you've got people even wanting to get into the game, it's a great time. I don't, maybe I'm biased because this is the first game I've been through, but I think kind of coming in around rotation is a great time to come in.
I think so too.
So, why don't you talk us through some of these really cool decks?
Yeah, so the concept here, so for me, I coin the term ultra budget, and I use that to mean under $50 in pure singles value, right? I'm not saying, it will always be that, because if you do some tactical trading, if you have a lot of extras of these cards, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, a lot of these cards are cheap, not just because they are lower rarity, but sometimes they're cheap because they're not quite as strong as some of the other options that are out there. But my goal was to create decks that are genuinely playable. They're not going to go win a set championship, but if you take them to League, you will not completely embarrass yourself. They are constructed about as well as you can under these constraints. One, that they're ultra budget, so they're coming in under $50 in pure singles value. And two, they are completely rotation proof. And I chose to do this because I have had questions. I've been fielded questions. How should I get into the game when half the cards are going to go away? Like, what do I do? Like, I don't want to spend money on a full play set of bounce cards because they're just going to go away probably.
Sadly.
Probably. And we don't know everything that's going to be reprinted yet, which is a challenge too. So, in 2 months, when we're getting spoilers for Fabled, we'll be able to do this again. But for now, if somebody was like, I want to play right now, I don't want to wait till September to build a deck, but I also don't want to waste my money. Or if you're like, I want to gift this to somebody that I'm hoping to get into the game, these are the decks that I would start with. Yeah. Assuming you're on a budget, right?
Yeah.
First one here.
It's really easy to spend a whole lot of money as you get into a game. So why not start with, we see people at our league that are like, what should I build? I have a limited budget. I can't just open packs. This is the perfect list.
This is the answer.
Yeah.
So pay attention. Okay. First one up, I have a deck that I'm calling Quick Load because as Lindsay and I like to play Baldur's Gate, that's a lot of quick saving, a lot of quick loading when we don't get what we want. Little bit of save scum here. But the concept is...
I was laughing at the names of these decks.
Yeah. So the concept here is it is a... Amber Ruby Racer deck. Yeah. It's really leaning hard into the dual ink side of things. Now here's the pro of this deck. It's self-contained, it's highly thematic and flavorful, and it's designed to synergize with itself. It sort of builds itself in a way. Yeah. The cons of that being not a lot of these cards are going to be useful outside of this deck. So if you're building this, building a deck or selecting a deck, trying to spend money on cards that are going to be as versatile as possible, this isn't the one. But this is absolutely the deck I would build to hand to a friend or family member, and I'm like, hey, do you want to try Lorcana? Also, do you like Wreck-It Ralph? Because it's all Wreck-It Ralph. Yeah. Here it is. It's almost everything in this deck is Wreck-It Ralph. Yep. Here you go. It'll be super fun for them to play with those. Okay, I've got Vanellope and King Candy and Wreck-It Ralph. But the thing is, and I've played this on Lorcanito, and it can win. This deck can absolutely win. So the way you play it is that it has all of these racers that are trying to return other racers from the discard pile, hence the quick load, right? They're rebooting. Yep. And that can buff them a bunch of ways. You have a Wreck-It Ralph that can give extra attack to a racer. You have Candy Drift as a cool dual link action where you give a huge attack bonus and then draw a card, but then they go away at the end of the turn. Well, that's fine, because you can just bring them back. Right. You have these amazing cards, a King Candy, and you have Calhoun and Wreck-It Ralph. That is, in this list, I have not maxed out the Wreck-It Ralph count just for uninkables because it is a 7-drop uninkable. But you have 11 characters that are there to bring cards back from the discard pile, bring those racers back and replay them. You also have Zombie Lilo in there as another way to keep the pressure on, bringing things back from the discard pile and spamming these things out. Now,
Zombie Racers.
The Zombie Racers could work too. That would be another good title. Now, you'll see a few cards that are in here. There's some location support. That's because you kind of need a curve-filling 1-drop in Taffeta. And then you also don't want to completely give up the really powerful Taffeta 4-drop that whenever it moves to a location, you gain 2 lore. There's a version of this where you use the Sugar Rush Speedway starting line and finish line. I get a lot of people. Gibby is a huge fan of this combo.
Yeah.
The problem is that in order to make that work, you have to supplement the card draw elsewhere, which tends to drive the price up. So we've chosen to leave those out. But if you wanted to try it, it still can be fit into the shell. You just have to trim out some of the other uninkable cards. And those 2 cards specifically are cheap. So you can pick them up and try them out if you want as well. But I really like this build. It's focused on, more aggressive, challenging questing. You don't care if things blow up because you're going to be able to get them back later.
Yeah.
The kind of cool thing for me is it actually already has amazing evasive answers baked in. You have this 3-1 evasive Vanellope and then a 3-3 Vanellope that has rush, and on the turn it's played has evasive. So it enables you to it kind of positions really nice into this Peter Pan meta, these Diablos that are running around out there. You have good answers for them with Vanellope, and then you can always, because she's a racer, pull her back later and remove the other one. So really cool stuff. I think that for $16 in singles price, you really can't beat it. It's pretty solid for the price.
Run down TCG Player and just buy the whole deck.
You
add to cart, optimize cart, send it.
and literally the only thing that I imagine might be slightly challenging to get a hold of would be Lilo's and Wreck-It Ralph's.
Yeah.
But everything else you can find in a commons box. Almost all of the stuff you're going to find in in bulk. So this is a very easy deck to pull together and just hand to somebody new.
Yeah. So
it's pretty cool.
Now I'm excited about the next deck too that you've got lined up here, because I've been looking for a deck to play my playset of heroes in. So please, let's hear about your next deck, Heroes for Hire.
Yeah, see, this one I have this is probably the deck that is going to be best positioned of these 3 decks that we're going to show after rotation. So this is a little bit of an investment into the future. This one costs about $26. It's very flavorful, very thematic, right? So we're leaning hard into the Big Hero 6 synergy and the Floodborne packages. Now, right now, positioned into the competitive meta, I think this is going to struggle just a little bit. Discard's very powerful right now. This deck is going to struggle a little bit into discard. However, there is no denying the strength of several of these cards, specifically the Floodborne package when supported by Hero Hamada. So the 7-drop hero gives all of your shifted Floodborns evasive and ward. If you can set this up, it's going to be extremely difficult for anyone to deal with any of your stuff ever. And so I've built this around 3.5 shift lines. So we're really looking at Fred, whose 7-drop shift line is going to help you find additional Floodborns. Once it's out, it's going to be able to help close games with the questing for 3, and it's also going to find more Floodborns for you to play out. We also have, of course, Go-Go Tomago. The 2-drop Go-Go is a strong investment in the future. It's one of the best cards in green, period. And so it's a really safe buy as one of the probably the most expensive card in this deck, or one of at least. And that's only about $1.50, $2. So it's a good, safe investment. And the Go-Go on 4 enables you to either remove, if you shift it, you can either take an opponent's card and put it into their inkwell, or the spicy play against a slower control deck, ramp your own Go-Go that you just shifted, and basically get to ramp 2 cards in 1 turn, which is going to be good when you're trying to get into your big Freds and heroes and stuff like that. You've got the Universal Shift Baymax. You've also got the Baymax that looks at the top cards for Floodborns. And then the spicy inclusion that I had to put some spice in there is the Jasmine. I was thinking, how does this deck handle opposing characters, especially because a lot of the disruption cards that we would like to include are rotating. So how do we do that to make it rotation proof. Well, this Jasmine is really cheap right now, but it has a chance of being really, really good in the future.
Yeah.
Because when you shift it, it allows you to bounce all of your opponent's exerted characters back to their hand, creating this massive tempo swing where you can then snowball the board from there.
With big sticky characters, if you get a hero out that's giving them evasive and ward.
Oh yeah, and if you get that Jasmine shifted and then immediately follow up with a hero on the following turn, like
you can't touch me.
Yeah, you're on easy street. So now upgrading this is pretty easy. If you have money and you want to try a version of this, or if you just want to, even if you are newer but you're willing to spend a bit more, you can make this a non-budget deck and invest in an extremely strong, very safe card to buy, which is a Clarabelle Shift Line. Big Clarabelle is about $15 a piece. So, again, that's not nothing. That's $60 ish for a play set. But if you can trade for her, if you've pulled a couple, or even if you have the money to go ahead and splash on Clarabelle, it is similar to Go-Go, a very safe investment if you like playing Emerald, and it's going to immediately impact this deck. You can take the Freds out or leave them in if you want and make cuts elsewhere to include this really powerful shift line, which is going to let you refill your hand up to your opponent's hand size, which is going to be pretty big after you bounce everything back with Jasmine.
So great budget, unless of course you had to play in 4 set champs to win the
That's true. Well, and that's the thing, because of the set champs, the superhero is really cheap now. So because everybody wants the cool looking ones.
Exactly. So all right, let's talk about the last one you have on your list.
Yeah, so this is probably the one that is going to be the best right now, and it's accordingly a little more expensive. However, I think there's also a chance that it is really, really good after rotation too. So this is, I call this mind your own business. I think if I was going, and I think we're probably going to put a video up here in the next week on the Camp Quest channel where I'm going to kind of talk through the steel package that I recommend everyone invest in if they're a new or budget player, because I think that there is a steel package here that should just that it can just translate into every other color. That's the docks, the happies, the Seven Dwarfs Mine as this, night package, right? But then you also have the just generally great cards in Pete, Pluto, and then a few fringe cards that you might consider, like the Gantu if you're playing aggro, the John Silver if you're playing aggro. And so this steel shell is a very strong, aggressive shell by nature, right? And what I've done is I've complemented it with Sapphire, and Sapphire Steel aggro is and has been in the meta in some way, shape, or form. Now, a lot of the best cards in it are pre-rotation. That's the Mr. Smee 2-drop that's going to rotate. That's the Strength of a Raging Fire, which is giving you some spot removal. We don't have that in this list, but if you wanted to play that, you could pick those up, play them in the set champs this season, and then when they rotate, you'll still have a good, strong shell to immediately fill out with new cards or whatever does get reprinted and fabled. So this, again, this is the most expensive one, but it is probably the one that is best right now. And then may prove to be good after rotation too. But I've paired it here with a card I really do believe in and actually has had some early tournament success, which is this Jasmine. This dual color Jasmine, serving as an additional resource extension tool. You can shift it onto your 1-drop Jasmine. If you're playing in the meta right now, if you're going to play this season, there's another 1-drop Jasmine that will rotate. But for now, it's a common. You can easily get it and use it in place of the Mulans or the Happies. You can kind of toy with them and find the right numbers for you.
And what fits your meta.
What fits your meta. But shifting that Jasmine in on a 1-drop Jasmine and then allowing you to go find an ally. We have the 4-drop Aladdin, which when it quests, it lets you play an ally of 3 cost less for free. And so we have things like Zipper. We've got Mr. Arrow. This 2-drop Mr. Smee is more of an evasive tech card. And then you have the tried and true, can't go wrong, 3-drop Alice that goes right into the 4-drop Pluto. Just an insanely broken combination.
It sure is.
Just getting to, quest for 2, and then give a bodyguard ward. Really, really nasty. And those Alices are actually pretty affordable too. That's a really safe investment if you want to play.
It's a great card.
And it's because it's not, blue typically doesn't play aggressive. This is one of the few aggro blue cards, and that's a strictly aggressive or combo card. And when it's not getting a lot of play outside of this archetype, but darn it, is it good in this setup. And then obviously one of the best cards in the game, and it's an uncommon, is Pete.
Right.
Saying your opponent can't play any actions is broken.
Yeah.
It's broken. So this, I think, is a really, really safe shell that you can take to League. You can sort of switch some cards out for now. If you do want to, get some of the other strong ally cards, you can get the Smees that are the current 2-drop Smee that will rotate. You can get Lawrence in there if you want to play Lawrence instead of like John Silver or Zipper. It's an ally. It's very powerful. You can use that. That's an uncommon as well, I believe. And then if you do pull some spicier cards like the 5-drop Baymax, now that doesn't rotate, but it is a little bit pricing us out of that $50 restriction I put on here. But the Baymax is fantastic for this. You can use, if you have old Cogsworths, you can put those in until rotation. This deck is a watered down version of a very, very, very strong current deck that is relatively affordable. And if you want to upgrade it after rotation, all you got to do, pick up a couple copies of Calhoun, pick up a couple copies of those Baymax, and you're in business. Desperate Plan is also a card at about $3 a pop. You could put this in there. It technically would keep us under the $50 restriction. But just wanted to keep it nice and clean. So an ally-focused Sapphire Steel aggro deck here that I think is a really, really good, safe investment for someone who wants to compete right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun one.
Cool.
I fiddled around with this sort of color combination last set and a more aggro build, and it was a lot of fun to play. So
Alice is really good.
Yeah, for sure.
Alice and a Pluto. Can't go wrong.
Can't beat it.
Yeah.
So, cool.
Well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you all so much for joining us. Next week, we're going to do another Welcome Wagon section where Lindsay is going to talk about tips for finding a local league that's the right fit for you.
Yeah. Hopefully you also live in an area where you have options.
Hopefully.
And you can find the right fit, but we'll talk about how to find one.
Right. And then we're going to do another coaching corner. I actually have not decided on a topic yet. So if you have something that you want to learn more about, something about Lorcana that gives you a hard time when you play, or something in deck building that you haven't quite figured out yet, let us know down in the comments if there's a topic you want us to potentially cover. I'll take a look before we outline the next episode, and if there's something in there, then we'll go ahead and include it. So, yeah. All right, thank you all so much for joining us, and we will catch you on the next one.
Yeah, don't forget to follow and subscribe. Comment, let us know what you think.
Like and subscribe.
Hit the bell.
That's right. All of that good YouTube-y stuff.
Yeah.
All right, we'll catch you later. Bye.